Leaders who are best at what they do, leaders who people love being led by, have one thing in common, and this is they lead authentically and they lead with amazing emotional intelligence. Empathetic leadership is the new standout factor. It has been for a while, but over the recent times, it has become more and more prominent and sets out really good leaders from others. When we lead authentically and with empathetic leadership, what we're doing is we're spotlighting our teams around us and ourselves where well-being, health and resilience is absolutely pivotal. You know, what Sarah and I have been seeing in so many strategic plans these days is that there is a very, very strong focus area in high-performing businesses where people love to work, where they have a focus area in their strategic plan which is already around health and well-being. It makes sure that it has strategic goals within that which focuses on mental resilience, around mental health, around making sure that we're really looking after ourselves. So if you want to be that standout leader, you want to lead with empathetic leadership. We've created this episode so that we're spotlighting some practical actions and disciplines that you can put in place very easily to help you show up as that empathetic leader that people want to be led by.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to kick off with, because emotions are just one of those things that are central to every single one of us. You know, we're human beings and we have emotions. And it's quite interesting. A lot of us, as we're growing up, we're almost taught to suppress our emotions. Or, you know, you often hear with children, oh, stop crying, or don't do this. It's okay. Everything's going to be fine. Whereas in actual fact, we actually need to allow our emotions to do the thing they're doing safely so that we can then understand what's happened with those emotions and actually move on. Because the more understanding we have with what's going on with our emotions, actually the more effective we can be in a situation or in conversations or whatever is going on for us. And so as leaders, if we're able to acknowledge what's happening with us from an emotional standpoint and then reframe our thinking, it's incredibly powerful how it can change those conversations that you're having with your people around you. And so when we don't get that opportunity to reframe, it can actually be quite unhelpful, because what happens is we just get caught up in our own emotions. And if you think about road rage, that's a classic example. There's a situation going on for someone and they're just so caught up in how furious they are with whatever the action is that someone's done. There may be some really good reasons for those actions. For example, you hear of those stories where people have had a stroke. So the person clearly is behaving erratically and driving crazy, but it was completely beyond their control. And so if, as the driver, we're able to take a step back and go, what might be going on here? And actually looking beyond our emotions. So acknowledging them because they're incredibly vital and they're very important, but actually reframing what's going on and taking a step back and saying, I'm really annoyed, this isn't right. Actually, this isn't right. I wonder why this person's behaving like that. And we actually take that moment to start that questioning process, that why would this be happening? And actually changing the way we behave as a result of reframing what's going on for us. And so if you can take that driving example and apply it in the workplace where you've got an employee who's behaving differently from what they would normally do, or they're in a conversation, they suddenly get really, really emotive. Taking that step where you go, actually, I'm a little bit frustrated here, but there's something else going on because actually this behavior is not normal for this person. I wonder why. And if we can stand still and actually acknowledge what's going on for us and then step into their shoes and see what's going on from them from their perspective, can you imagine how constructive your conversation's going to be, not just for you, but more importantly, for that person? You're less likely to have it blow up and get out of control, but you're more likely to understand why. So you're actually able to change what the outcomes might look like, both for the person and for you, and actually probably for the business as well. So when we're thinking about that emotional intelligence piece, it's not about ignoring what's going on for us, because we are feeling creatures that think, not thinking creatures that feel, but really pausing and acknowledging what's happening for us and reframing our viewpoint. So what's happening for that person and why are they behaving the way they're behaving and how can I help? It's such a powerful thing to be able to do. It's a really challenging thing for you to do. So that's our challenge, and our practical tip, or my practical tip for you for this week, is to take that step back, acknowledge what's happening for yourself, and try and see something from somebody else's perspective by stepping into their shoes.
Empathetic leaders, they know how to get the best out of themselves and the best out of others. And one of the key ways is making sure that emotional intelligence, that skill, is actually continually fine-tuned. It's a craft, it's a skill, it's a knowledge, it's a capability that will enable you to set yourself apart from other people. You know, as a leader, you have amazing impact, good, bad, or the ugly. And it's you as a leader that sets the tone of the culture. So if you are working on your emotional intelligence and making sure that you spotlight how you behave in certain situations and how you react to certain situations as well, then how powerful is it when you are role modeling amazing behaviors? So a couple of key self-awareness tips, because as an empathetic leader, you will be front-footing self-awareness, is around making sure that you are self-aware. So that enables you then to identify those moments, to identify what are your triggers. So a practical exercise is to actually write down what are the things that actually do wind you up, and what are those immediate signals that your body gives you when you're starting to be wound up. Now, if we really listen to those signals our body's giving, and it's those early on signals, so we actually can catch it, and then what we can do is we can then regulate it. And then we can actually, just like what Sarah's just been saying, you can then say to yourself, okay, so how do I make the best out of this situation right now? Because if you react emotionally, notice the word I used was react, that means you're not responding. And so when you react, logic, common sense is likely to have gone out the window. So 2 practical exercises that I would really love to share with you today is, one is look back over your last week and really look at your week with a spotlight and think, where was there an event at a situation where I actually could have handled that better? Where was I more emotionally triggered? How did I handle it? And if I was in that same situation again, what would I do differently? And that's a really powerful one, that reflection exercise. And what we actually quite often do is get people to have a journal and do that on a regular basis. And it is amazing when you do that self-reflection exercise, how you will spotlight your emotional intelligence, you'll focus on regulation, you'll focus on growth, and then all of a sudden you'll see that elevation in emotional intelligence. And we all know that emotional intelligence, like Daniel Goleman says, has 2 sides. One side is personal competence, like we've just been talking about, and the second is the social competence. So what I would really like you to do for the second practical exercise from me is to go through and look at a challenging situation you've got coming up in the next few days or the next week, and just jot down some thoughts about what emotions are you feeling going into that. And what I want you also to do is then also put yourself in the other person's shoes and do a little bit of an audience profile and think, okay, so what are their questions, concerns? How are they likely to be feeling coming into this? And then work out your game plan to make sure that you're focusing on getting the best out of the situation for the other person and for yourself.
You know, it's funny, I really love those exercises, those self-reflection pieces. They're just so powerful for our own learning and ongoing. And isn't it funny? I like the putting yourself in the audience's shoes, because we forget they're human beings as well, right? So they've got emotions just like what we've got going on, but they're just in a different frame. And so we forget that we're actually all the same, and we're all carrying emotions, and we've all got things going on for us. But it's how we look and view these areas and what's going on for everyone that's really going to shape how our conversations or presentations or whatever we're doing in our day-to-day lives as leaders is actually going to look and feel for other people and look and feel for us. So we hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and we've shared some neat tricks around understanding triggers and doing some reframing, and we look forward to catching up with you again next week.